Hi everyone, I'm Masoud from Iran. Today we are going to speak about the use of theory in proposal or dissertation. One component of reviewing the literature is to determine what theories might be used to explore the questions in a scholarly study. In quantitative research, researchers often test theories as an explanation for answers to their questions. In a quantitative dissertation, an entire section of a research proposal might be devoted to presenting the theory for the study. In qualitative research, the use of theory is much more varied. The researcher may generate a theory as the final outcome of a study and place it as end of a project, such as in grounded theory. In other qualitative studies, it comes at the beginning and provides a lens that shapes what is looked at and the questions asked, such as in ethnographies or in transformative research. In mixed methods research, researchers may both test theories and generate them. Moreover, mixed methods research may contain a theoretical framework within which both quantitative and qualitative data are collected. Theories can be used in quantitative, qualitative, and mixed method studies. I began this section by focusing on theory used in quantitative study. I review a definition of a theory, the use of variables in a quantitative studies, the placement of theory, and the alternative forms it might assume in written plan. Before discussing quantitative theories, it is important to understand variables and the types that are used in forming theories. A variable refers to a characteristic or attribute of an individual or an organization that can be measured or observed and that varies among the people or organization being studied. Independent variables are those that probably cause, influence, or affect outcomes. They are also called treatment, manipulated, antecedent, or predictor variables. Dependent variables are those that depend on the independent variables. They are outcomes or results of the influence of the independent variables. Other names for dependent variables are criterion, outcome, effect, and response variables. Intervening or mediating variables stand between the independent and independent variables, and they mediate the effects of the independent variable on the dependent variable. For example, if students do well on a research methods test, a dependent variable results may be due to their study preparation, that is independent variable, and their organization of study ideas into framework, that is intervening variable that influenced the performance on the test. In a quantitative research study, variables are related to answer a research question. For example, how does self-esteem influence the information of friendships among adolescents? Or to make a prediction about what the researcher expects the results to show. These predictions are called hypotheses, that is individual, or for example, individual positive self-esteem expands the number of friends of adolescents. Researchers state their theories in research proposals in several ways, okay, such as stories of hypotheses, if-then logic statements, or visual models. First, some researchers state the theories in the form of interconnected hypotheses. In Quantitative studies, one uses theory deductively and places it toward the beginning of the proposed study with the objective of testing or verifying a theory rather than developing it. The researcher advances a theory, collects data to test it, and reflects on its confirmation or disconfirmation by the results. The theory becomes a framework for the entire study, an organizing model for the research questions or hypotheses and for the data collection procedure. The researcher tests or verifies a theory by examining hypotheses or questions derived from it. These hypotheses or questions contain variables that our researcher needs to define. A general guide is to introduce the theory early in plan or study, in the introduction, in the literature review section, immediately after hypotheses or research questions, as a rationale for the connections among the variables, or in a separate section of the study. Each placement has its advantages and disadvantages. Assume that the task is to identify theories that explains the relationship between independent and dependent variables. Looking at the discipline-based literature for a theory. If the unit of analysis for variables is an individual, looking the psychological literature to study groups or organizations. Look in the psychological literature if the project examines individuals and groups. Consider the social psychology literature. Examine also prior studies that address the topic or a closely related topic. What theories did the authors use? Limit the number of theories and try to identify one comprehensive theory or overarching theory that explains the central hypothesis or major research question. Why would the independent variables influence the dependent variables? Follow these sentences. The theory that I will use is, you write the name of theory. It was developed by, you identify the origin, source, or developer of the theory, and it was used to study. You identify the topics where one finds the theory being applied. The theory indicates that you fill out this blank. You should identify the propositions or hypotheses in the theory as applied to my study. The theory holds that I would expect my independent variables, you state independent variables, to influence or explain the dependent variables. You state dependent variables because you provide a rational base on the logic of the theory. Okay, that's the topics to include in a quantitative theory discussion, or the theory to be used, its central hypotheses or propositions, information about past use of the theory and its application, and statements that reflect how it relates to a proposal study. Thanks for your listening. If you have any question, please don't hesitate me, and subscribe and support our channel with inviting your friends. Thank you again.